Hey, hello everyone. This is Julie with New Life for Today, and today's teaching is going to be the first in a series called The Promised Land. And this takes vision, it takes imagination, it takes grit, it takes pulling ourselves up out of pits, it takes going through a refining process. And so we're going to be pulling some truths out of Joshua's journey, the tribe of Israel. And I want you to think about your tribe, your family. I want you to think about your tribe, your work. I want you to think about your tribe, what you're doing in the schools, what you're doing in the churches, what you're doing in businesses. And that the lessons and so we're going to be looking at some power principles today from this story that will hopefully be able to keep us going in an activated manner. And so I want to turn to Joshua, and there's just some things. I want to set a little background here. We're not going to actually go into the background type things, but in this background, I want you to go back and look at what happened with Moses. And there is a good example of what not to do when the Israelites came out of Egypt. They experienced these testimonies, these miracles of what God had done for them. But one thing, and so here is like one of the power principles that I'm trying to live out right now is I think COVID has caused some people to have a limiting belief. Some people would say an orphan spirit. Some people would say a poverty spirit. And what happened is the people, after they got out where it wasn't easy, okay, God had done all the miracles, but while God was doing those miracles, they were slaves. And unfortunately, when he did the miracles, he brought them out, but what happened? They brought their slave type mentality with them. So the first principle is to ask God during COVID or during my current struggle, am I making grumblings and complainings? And this is me too, okay? I am sharing this today because God is showing me truths that about lies that I have been confessing about COVID. And like last week, I shared about COVID, and God told me specifically, I thought this was very interesting because I found it in my journal. It said that he could renew and restore what COVID had taken, and that COVID was not more powerful than God. So you know that we always work off of the power principle that I am never powerless. There's always the provision if we believe for it. But when the Israelites were coming out, I was reviewing Exodus. I was reviewing Numbers. And the problem is that it says, I didn't write down the exact verse, but it says that 10 times they doubted the character of God. And if you think about our, mine included, our give up moments is when we fall into that temptation, and this is from last week's teaching, that the thing that's in front of our telescope becomes bigger than who God is. So the first thing that I wanted to set the tone is that the reason that Joshua is leading, now this is a very powerful principle, but it's a sobering one, because the reason that Joshua is leading them into the promised land instead of Moses is because of the grumbling. It's because that in the moment when things got hard, you know what happened? They grumbled and complained and doubted God's provision. Instead of projecting and proclaiming with action behind the words that God was with them. And so the thing is as I read those chapters, my heart was grieved because it's so easy for it to come and cover, like I do that motorcycle example, and we cover the visor with doubt and despair and all the rejection. But the thing is our own beliefs can cause our visor to get blocked up. And then what comes out of our mouth isn't in alignment with where we want to go. And so as I looked at Joshua, and now what's happened is in the wilderness, all those people died. And what was the point? Everybody 20 years and older, and all the people who were born in that 40 years were the only people who went in besides Joshua and Caleb. But why? But the Lord was like, the poverty spirit had to die. And here's the second power principle. This is the framework, is that in the desert, they were learning to trust God and learn how to do combat with swords. Learn how to be an army instead of a group of slaves. And this is what COVID is forcing us to do. It's forcing us to let go of the mindset, and this is me too. I'm not just putting this label on you this morning, but I'm telling you, if you are struggling, and then the thing we need to do is put off the slave mentality, put off the orphan mentality, put off the poverty mentality, really, really watch our words, repent. I had to repent. And then we had to go through the time of preparation. In the wilderness, they were not being successful. They were not yet, here's the thing, yet enjoying the promised land. So now they're coming out into the promised land. And what does the Lord say? Now, we're going to start in chapter 1 of Joshua. All right. And on your notes this week, I'd like you to fill in, what has God said and promised to me? What has God said? Not what other people are saying, not projecting how powerful the world is and that it is impossible, but what has God said? Because in verse 3, I love this. It says, well, let's start in verse 2, actually. It says, Moses, my servant, is dead. Okay, the past is over. Pre-COVID is over. We are going to be going into a promised land, okay? This is a new territory, all right? Then it says, so arise, and then in the Amplified Bible, it says, take his place. So we are being called to rise up, to take our place, all right? To take our place. Don't read this story and look at it as Joshua is now going to take his place. It's we're taking our place, okay? Then it says, there's another action word. So if God is causing or calling you to take action, it says, go over this Jordan. They had to go over the barrier that looked impossible. It took a miracle for that nation to get over Jordan. So just because you need a miracle as part of your journey, the part that you're going to steward, that you can do, the being faithful, great. But God's part, trusting him for that part. Okay. Then it says, you and all this people, and here's the powerful phrase for today, is into the land that I am giving to them. Israelites. Now the observation as a Bible teacher that I want you to see is at this point, this is the promise, and they have not been living it the last 40 years. The time of transition into the new has come, but right this minute, when God is saying it, it is still a future promise. They could have lost the promise if they weren't willing to go through chapters 1 to 6. Okay? And so the first thing is, I want you to make the promise, make the word that God has said to you, help other people to identify their promises. If you're dealing with someone who has lost a loved one, comforting them, but eventually trying to help them to get back into life, into the promise. If they're having marital trouble, projecting the promise, reminding them of their vows, reminding them, even as we talked last week, of what has God done in the past. It looks bad right now. What has he done in the past? And then I can thank him for it, and that he's going to do something in the future. Okay, the memorial stones, the faith anchors. All right. So then notice that it's in this context that he says, every place upon the sole of your foot shall tread, that have I given to you. So the thing is that we need to look at our feet. And here's the thing, if we won't take our feet into the promised land, are we going to possess it? So this requires movement into, and I'm challenging myself with this. Okay, the Lord is challenging me to make phone calls. He's challenging me to make reservations. He's challenging me, of these things, of starting online, videos. The thing is, but it will not happen unless we take the sole of our foot, until we take our computer and press start video, until we take our car or our plane flight or whatever it is, we won't get the promised land. So then what I thought was very interesting is that he says in verse 5, no man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so shall I be with you. That the thing is to give us the courage as we step forward. And I know that it sounds like God is with you, but look at the next phrase. This has power. If you will pray this in the moment of choices, I will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong and of good courage. Now, here's the thing, ladies. We are about, in this group, we are about activation and multiplication. And wasn't the beautiful video of Terry in was it Zanzibar? Zanzibar. I could see the multiplication of what has been deposited in her, and she was releasing it, and it was multiplying in the nations. Like almost nothing else could make me happier. Like seeing Jill's day camp and seeing it multiplied into children, like seeing these things. It's like, oh, that's what makes my heart sing. And when I watched that video, I was like, I'm ready to go to heaven, God. Like multiplication, be fruitful and multiply. The Genesis promise. I'm like, yes, actually, like seeing the fruit of the multiplication of the seeds and the prayers and the love that goes into sowing into the army of God, and then watching it flourish. So anyway, it's in this context that God says, Be strong and of good courage, because here's the multiplication. I want you to look at verse 6. Look at this, just look at it and let it soak into your heart. For you shall cause this people to inherit the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. The thing is as leaders, it's not just about us. In leaders, it's about seeing others be able to inherit the promises of God. And so the thing is Joshua has to say yes. Joshua has to move his feet into the territory. He has to get them to move his feet into the territory. And he has to believe that when he needs a miracle, that God is not going to fail him. And so the thing is that is my prayer, that in the days ahead of moving into territories, that in those moments, that the telescope of what we're looking at will not be filled with the giants in the land, because that's what got them into trouble. That's what got them 40 years in the wilderness. That's what lost Moses not being able to lead them into the promised land. And so I say, love this. And this reminds me of the teaching that we had, if you're listening, and on my channel, I believe that there's a teaching from Sherilyn, turn not to the left or to the right. Remember that great teaching that she did? Here we find it in the word. Look what it says. Verse 7, only you be strong and courageous, that you may do according to all the law my servant Moses commanded you. But here's where it says, turn not from it to the left or to the right, that you may prosper in whatever you do. And it can be so hard. It can be so tempting to turn to the left or to the right and get out of the place of pain, of responsibility, of needing God, because what you're doing won't succeed without him. But in that moment, don't turn to the left. Don't turn to the right, but stay true. Keep your compass on what did God say? What did God say? And then the book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth. How do we keep our compass pointed forward?
Meditate on his word daily.
That's right. And I know that our sister Liz could quote this verse. The book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night. So here's the thing. We're keeping the word. We're keeping the word of what did God say. We're keeping it in front of our telescope. We're keeping it in front of full of our mind. Okay. We're stewarding ourselves. We have to take time to steward ourselves. If we don't, we'll turn to the left. We'll turn to the right. So it's good to steward and keep yourself full. But then it says, remembering, and the last time I shared on this, I highlighted this too, but this is one of the key verses. It says, for then, in verse 8, you could circle the for then, because if you are strong, if you choose to be courageous, these are our choices. No one else can make you strong. No one else can make you be courageous. Yes, you're shaking your head up and down online. Yes, that's true. But why? We keep our mind full. We meditate on the word, okay? Because the enemy is out there screaming on the left. The enemy is trying to drag you in depression on the right. But why do we keep ourselves pointed toward what God has said? Okay? For then, here's the reason. You shall make your way prosperous, and then you shall deal wisely and have good success. The thing is, some of us don't have success and we think it's all the enemy. But you know what? If we won't put our foot into the promised land, we won't have land for God to give us.
In the middle of that verse, it says, do observe and do.
Yes, observe and do.
Requires action.
Yes, it requires action. And the thing is it doesn't say God will do it by himself to make me prosperous. God, it does not say that. And then it says, you shall deal wisely. Yes, God gives us the wisdom, he gives us the strength, but we still have to do the choices.
Because we're in a personal relationship with him, he includes us.
Yes, Liz said, because we're in a personal relationship, he includes us. I like to say we co-labor with him. We co-labor with him. And so the thing is, it says, you shall make your way prosperous, you shall deal wisely and have good success. But it's all about, what did God say? And sometimes it's so easy to stop. Like COVID stopped me in my tracks. It just, there were so many things blowing up, so many people blowing up, but we have to get refocused in what did God say? And then it says, have I not commanded you? This is verse 9. Have I not commanded you? That's why I'm asking you this week, whoever is listening to this recording, write down on a piece of paper in your journal, what did God say to me? Not to someone else, but to me. And that's what was so powerful about when I went to Colorado, is he confirmed things he had said to me that I had, because of the tragedies, I had put those things on the shelf. I was still serving him, but God renewed. I'm still saying this. God renewed it. He said, I'm still saying this. And yet it's the big things that he says, but it's also the little things. I want to give you an example. This is the tiniest thing. I had some of my stuff in storage, and I thought that stuff was going to be there like 2 or 3 months last July. It was supposed to be a temporary thing. Okay. Then I get involved in the election and it becomes a longer thing. Then I get hurt in December. It becomes an even longer thing. Now I'm living with Melissa and I'm in this wonderful, like still completing my healing. I can see it. I can feel it. I can start to begin to taste it. And you know what? My stuff is still in storage. And I was asking God, should I just sell the stuff? Should I just get rid of it all? Should I not pay for storage anymore? I can't decide. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do. And so I'm in church on Sunday, and praise God that the worship leader, he said, I feel like we're supposed to just rest from our prayer time today, rest in God's Spirit and listen. And so in the middle of all that, okay, I'm in some spiritual land, like I'm in the throne room with God. I don't care about anything at this moment. I love that place of rejuvenation. And God begins to speak while I'm listening, and he says, you can keep your stuff. You can keep whatever you want and pay for storage. You can keep it, Julie. You don't have to get rid of it. I want to bless you. If you want to keep it, then keep it. And he just stops talking. And I'm like, good, I can go forward. I can go forward because God gave me a word that now I can act on. I know what to do. It's when I don't know what to do and I don't know what he said that we get stuck. You know what I mean? And so we have to remind ourselves, that's why I'm asking you to write down, what did God say to me? And then if you need help with a step, ask him and get yourself in a place of listening. And then we can be wise and courageous in our actions. Okay, so then.
And I think that's why God says to be strong and courageous, because our strength comes from the Lord. So if we can truly, and I'm doing this over and over and dealing with my parents right now. Strength.
Just
strong and courageous. It goes right along with all this.
It does. So we're gonna conclude today.
Roxanne going.
Yeah, like Roxanne going. Okay, so now I want you to look at verse 11. And I want you to look at this for yourself, okay? For your promised land. It says, Joshua commanded the officers saying, this is verse 11, pass through the camp. I want you to, they are passing through, okay? They're notifying everybody. It says, and command the people. Here's your command, people. Here's your command, ladies. Here's your command, whoever listens to this tape or CD or recording, sorry. Prepare your provisions. Prepare your provisions. They are now leaving and they are going into. What do you have to prepare? This is perfect. Prepare your provisions, for within 3 days you shall pass over the Jordan. And so here's the thing. Today's teaching, the first installment is called Prepare Your Provisions, because it says you shall pass over this Jordan. Now they are in this process of transition and they're preparing the provisions to go in to take possession of the land the Lord your God, notice this is still future tense, is giving you to possess. And so we're going to end there, because the thing is that we have to know, what is he giving you? What is he giving me to possess? Then there's the preparation of it, the stewardship of it, okay? Because we have to go in, and that is the action behind the word. And most things that God tells me to do require more than just one action. It's this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this obstacle, and this disappointment, and then keeping my face forward, set like flint. What did he tell me to do? What did he tell me to do? What did he tell me to do? And then the thing is then my foot gets into the territory. And so there are so many exciting things that Joshua is going to, what we're going to have in the series about possessing the promised land is just going to be like phenomenal. But I hope that today that this has highlighted to you in a spirit of revelation. And from our prayer time, you know, what other people are saying to try to get us not to do it, the opposite, like our own emotions of trying to get us not to do it, we all know that we can't turn to the left or to the right and stay focused on what God said. So anybody have something they want to share before we close?
So my grandson is counseled a defense message that said Joshua stood up and strongly grabbed the chair in front of him and walked around to the other side. It might be 9 months. I think he's 9 months now. And I'm just thinking of that word picture. Here's a baby who's willing to stand up, strongly put one foot in front of the other, and didn't fall. And I think God is faithful. When he says to be strong and courageous, then that is when he does use us.
That's good. That's good. Okay, anybody else online want to unmute? Okay, Laurel.
I just want to share a praise while we were meeting. I got a text from my friend Laura, who you all have prayed for.
Yeah.
And remember, she got sent to Mayo rather than going to Marshfield. And she had a consultation, etc., I think yesterday. And they are having her surgery on this Thursday. So she is thrilled because the waiting has been horrible. And she feels that God did this, that he put her in the right hands over there in Rochester. And this is going to be a tough surgery and everything, but she feels like God is walking with her. And I assured her